Well, everybody, here we are. It's the date night with the Mr. and the Mrs. B, and we're going to get right into it. Tonight's topic: why do we choose dysfunction? And so I'm going to explain to that what it's all about. I didn't say why some people choose dysfunction or why you all choose dysfunction. Why do we choose dysfunction? And there's a lot of dysfunction that goes on, and it's a matter of opinion. But I'll tell you what brought this up. There's several things. Last week we had a topic, and I mentioned about how the day before Father's Day we were out on the boat, and it was five couples and one single female on the boat, and yeah, five couples. Well, it ended up being five couples. It was actually four couples, one single female on the boat. And of course, we ended up picking up an extra couple as extra passengers on the boat. But I'll get to that. So I mentioned about that situation where there was this huge screaming and cursing and carrying on. And basically, this guy who was drunk was yelling at what we found out later on was his fiance. Okay. Now, everybody that's listening right now, you know, whenever you see a domestic situation, your first impulse is to stay away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, us as men, um, men like myself, there's no way we're going to sit by and watch a man lay his hands on any woman. I'm telling you right now, I will step in. And you've seen many issues on the news all over the country where someone steps in on a dispute and ends up getting stabbed or shot or something like that. It's happening all the time. But we go back to that situation. So here the guy was who was drunk, literally was shoving his fiance off the boat and telling her to get the F off the boat. And the way he was screaming at her, like yelling at the top of his voice, that the entire beach area could hear this guy in his woman's face, screaming and cursing her out and telling her to get the F off the boat. Okay? Now, that was probably because of some jealousy, something, or whatever. Um, but here's the point. So, again, every single female that was on our boat, it ended up being what, six different females. Every single female will say there was no way I was going to let a man treat me or talk to me or anything like that. And most women will honestly say that. One or two of the ladies went and was talking to the lady on the boat who the guy was just cursing out and told her, "Hey, we got room on our boat. If he's kicking you off the boat, that's fine. You can come with us. We had room. We were on a 12 passenger boat, so we had enough room to add the one more." So she was crying and all that stuff, of course, being upset and embarrassed because here you are being yelled at. And kept telling one of the ladies that was from our boat, who kept trying to say, "You don't need to be around a guy like this." And she kept saying, "No, I'm going to stay. You just don't understand."
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's ponder on that for a second. And where I'm going with this is that us as coaches, many of us as coaches, sometimes we have a low tolerance um, to really understand or try to understand where someone is coming from. Um, we don't try to walk a mile in their shoes, and we don't want to. And we have a low tolerance where we don't really try to keep at them for them to understand where the real situation is. But here's something that most of the women didn't look at. Maybe the life outside of that relationship that she's in, as dysfunctional as it was, somehow she perceived it to be worse than what she was experiencing. Maybe this guy took her out of a situation that was much worse, so he's still the knight in shining armor despite of the way that he talks to her.
And maybe he's a really nice guy when he's not drinking.
Again,
You know, because I think there was definitely liquor
there was
involved.
a lot of alcohol involved.
Mm-hmm.
But think about that level of dysfunction for a moment, right? It happens in all types of relationship. Let's think about in the workplace. Some of us who's been around a boss who talks inappropriately, and not just in a sexual way. Sometimes curses, talks to you like trash, um, talks down to you, always belittles you, all that stuff. But yet still we stay in the job. Why? Because we want to make sure we get paid, right? So we put up with that level of dysfunction, and that's dysfunctional. That's a dysfunctional relationship in the workplace. And you can come up with tons of examples that we can come up with tons of examples right now that would probably take the rest of the night talking about the ways how dysfunctional a relationship is and how we choose to stay in that relationship. How many times we hear situations where a man is being physically abusive to a woman and she's staying. And when you say, "Why don't you leave that guy?" she says the same words. "You just don't understand. You don't know my story." Now, this came about once because, as a coach myself, like I said, and being part of an organization where we talk about a core four, for instance, where we treat give people the roadmap to experience their vision, their finances, their relationships, their wellness, and we talk about, okay, well, wellness, for instance, you got to eat healthy, you got to exercise, and we try to tell people, okay, don't eat processed foods, for instance, right? I can tell you there was my times in college and even times between work where I didn't have a choice but to eat processed foods. You think about right now, just coming out of the pandemic, people who are starving. What do we tend to buy these people in these food drives?
Canned foods.
Canned foods, processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
Yet still we try to tell people to eat right, right? But we need to take that little bit of extra time to understand why some people choose that dysfunctional relationship. Sometimes it's with our parents, right? Now, with our parents, for instance, we know how a relationship is supposed to be from our parents, and it's not happening that way. So then, in a way, we're choosing that dysfunction because we know we're not going to stop having a relationship with our parents, or we're the parent and the child, and there's a dysfunctional way that the relationship is going. Grandparents, I mean, you can think of any relationship, and there's a level that we choose dysfunction because somehow in our mind we can't do better. So I'm here to tell you, we are here to tell you that you actually can do better. Now, yes, it's a lot easier said than done. A lot of the themes of what we talk about in Date Night with Mr. and Mrs. B is about um, self love and unconditional self love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, when I talk about the core four that I teach, one of them is relationships, and we talk about many times about your board of directors. We referred to them before in the past as your anchors and your engines, right? You guys remember that episode? But here's the thing: what do you do if the only people that receive you with open arms are the anchors? What do you do when the engines the engines are performing so well they keep leaving you in the dust? You can't ever seem to catch a break and be in their circle. What do you do then? That's a fair question. So again, come back to, as a coach, we have to take the time, and all you coaches out there, we got to take the time and sometimes treat with kid gloves, because what happens is many times the coaches try to choose the path of tough love, sometimes try to toughen up and push someone in a direction that they may not necessarily be ready for, or it's being built on a weak foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So I come across that so much where there's dysfunction, and I talk a little bit about it in the book. which again is available right now. Remember, we have that 1,000 book push drive that you can find available on Amazon. But I spoke a little bit about that, about the guy that comes home every day and kicks his shoes off and all that stuff, right? We talked a little bit about that in the last episode. And as far as the woman is concerned, at one point she had her knight in shining armor. At one point she had her Prince Charming, and he's not that anymore. And she doesn't recognize, okay, she may not ever have that Prince Charming back. So she choose the dysfunction, or I guess you can kind of say the dysfunction chooses her. Either way, she's not choosing to get out of that dysfunctional relationship. And for some people it's too late. So if you know someone that is going through a dysfunctional situation, it's easy to say get out of that situation,
Then it's not.
but ask them.
Sometimes it's not.
Ask them why. When they say you don't understand, ask them to help you understand. You know, you will see where the core happened, where the foundation of that type of feeling that there was no other way than to live in this dysfunctional situation. You know, and here's how you recognize dysfunction. If someone treats you or talks to you a way that you would not allow anybody to talk to your own child, your mother, your sister, any of your siblings, it's not okay for you to do that. Then you're in a dysfunctional relationship. You're in a dysfunctional situation. Um, there's all different things that we know we want from our relationship. Don't settle for anything less. Um, it's one of those deals where, and we all do it. We all settle. I mean, everybody has that crazy sibling or uncle or whatever that just goes crazy over the holidays, or drinks too much, or is verbally abusive, or whatever. It's all around us, right? We have to choose to start loving ourselves enough and enjoy being around ourselves before we that way we can reject some of the dysfunction that sometimes just gets drawn. It's like little gnats, like little those bloodsuckers, that just gets attached to you like a leech.
A leech, yeah.
It just kind of get drawn to you. The dysfunction kind of pulls in towards you
Only if you allow it.
if you allow it. Again, not so much, a lot easier said than done. But again, it's having a conversation.
You're
Those
having awareness too.
those of you that are parents, have that conversation, and keep having that conversation about rejecting dysfunction within your relationship, and any type of relationship. Have open conversations about it, so that way you can come up as a strong force. Find and groups that's accepting, that's all on the same page as getting rid of some of that dysfunction. So I know we went a little bit deep today. I know.
You went deep, yeah.
But it's one of those things that as a coach and dealing with couples and relationships, it sometimes weighs heavy on me. I'm not gonna lie, it weighs heavy on me because I see the dysfunction, and especially it's bad especially when it seems like it's normal, like it's okay to have that dysfunction.
I guess when you live it every day, it becomes normalcy for you.
Yeah. You
That's
try to
what
make
it is.
every excuse to make it normal, to say, okay, this doesn't just happen to me. Yeah, it's not a whole lot of people that happens to.
But sometimes there's some people that might think that that's not a dysfunction for them.
Exactly. It's in the eye of the beholder. And the person on the outside looking in sees it as dysfunctional, I mean, we've been out sometimes hanging out with couples and they getting into full blown arguments in front of us, you know, and that's uncomfortable to be around that, and that's normal for them. They think it's this they're just having a debate, whatever they want to call it. But the bottom line is that you wouldn't have anybody talk to your child that way, or your sibling,
Or your mother, or
or a
your
loved
sister, or
one.
your anybody. Just
Yep,
period.
any loved one. If
Yeah.
it's okay, then I guess that's, hey, that's your thing, and who are we to judge? So we're not coming from a judgmental point. We're just coming from a point of saying, you know what, recognize it and have the conversations about it. So, and don't choose dysfunction. But Fourth of July weekend, I know we said we weren't going to date these, but this is a big weekend. So everyone have an amazing long weekend.
A happy and a safe, safe,
Yes.
safe, safe
And Mrs. B is
July
going to tell you
4th.
for this weekend.
And I want all of you to love up on each other.
All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye now.